I think for us, you know, Mike and I, especially because we're writing the lyrics and stuff, we're just becoming confident enough to write socially charged or morally charged lyrics that aren't preaching at you and don't. It's like when we write about something that kind of hints towards war, we're not specifically talking about that war. Or, you know, we're talking about war in general. Or if we're talking about love, we're talking about an idea of how we feel love can be given and received. And so it's not necessarily about me loving my dog, for example. You know what I mean? So so I think that, you know, there's definitely a political feeling. There's definitely some kind of there's a balance between this emotional cry. It feels like it's crying out for something, like more. I feel like the record screams for, you know, is asking like, where is the humanity gone? Like why are musicians, you know, propelled to talk about war and not being able to trust people, and, you know, that's what I feel like that's something that we feel gravitated towards. Like we get to see all these different places in the world, and we have been alive to watch a lot of really amazingly positive and amazingly negative things happen in the world. And so we're writing about those things. We want to make sure we're not telling people how to feel or what to think or anything like that. So it's kind of, I think it's kind of difficult. We're still in that difficult place where we don't really know how to react to talking about politics, for example, or religion, or, you know, how that relates to the songs that we make. We just know that that those things do influence us. I would say that the answer is yes to both. We have written a lot of songs to make a record before, but I feel like with Hybrid Theory and this one, not quite as many songs were written as, for example, for Minutes to Midnight or for Meteora. So I feel like, you know, what we did on this one that was kind of different, and we did it consciously, was we kind of looked at the fact that we do write so many things, and there's a lot of stuff that when we go back and listen, we kind of have what we call like the graveyard, where everything that we haven't used goes in, so we can kind of either use it for inspiration or we can kind of note flag things in terms of like, this was a cool snare sound even though we didn't use it in the song or whatever. But we realized that we have a lot of these really great ideas, but maybe something else was coming along faster and kind of caught our attention, and we started working on that, and then this one thing kind of got pushed off to the side, and we decided, let's try not to do that. Let's try to, if we like 5 songs, let's finish those 5 songs. And then when it gets closer to being finished, we should know pretty quickly whether we like that song or not. And if anything feels like we like it, then we just continue working on it. So by doing that, we wrote fewer songs, and it kind of laser focused our attention onto these things. So yeah, but at the same time, like, we are a band that's capable of writing, you know, 300 songs in a year, or ideas at least, that will turn into songs, and then having to choose out of that, it gets kind of, it makes the process a little longer. But
well, Rick has certainly been influential to us artistically, and he just has so much experience making music. And he's such a great fit for us, because we started out doing hip-hop stuff and rock stuff, and it's like not a lot of people have kind of a masterful sense of both of those styles of music, and he certainly is that guy. And just in terms of challenging us, as Mike was saying, to think about things in a different way, approach things differently. There's like a fluidity and intuitiveness to the style of writing on this album that made it what it is. Like, we never could have, with our left brains, conceived these songs, because they're so crazy. Like, at times, like they were all the results of unconscious experiments in the studio that we wound up loving and just went with. And so that, I think he really helped engender that openness in the process.
And just to clarify something, I know Brad mentioned like being originally attracted to Rick's like work as a, you know, to the dynamic that he might bring to the table when working with us because of his past in the hip hop and rock genres. But actually, what has ended up happening is that the band's taste has broadened far beyond those two genres, and the reason Rick was an interesting choice for us on this record is because of everything else he's done too. Like he's worked on Johnny Cash and Neil Young and Dixie Chicks and like many different things besides, you know, the heavy metal stuff and the hip hop stuff and whatever. And just in conversation with him, I know he's, you know, he and I, we have some awesome conversations about, oh, what are you listening to? Did you check this out? Did you check that out? And for me, that was like one thing that I felt really excited about because I knew that we were speaking a language, we were speaking the same language, and it's kind of a new language, because it always like the landscape always changes, you know. So for us to be on the same plane with that is cool.
Yeah, I think you know, Rick his talent lies in, I think, being able to be a captain rather than take over. Like I use the analogy of like he's a great captain of a ship, you know, but he doesn't tell his crew how to run it. You know, I mean, that's part of being a captain. Is you have to trust that the people that are operating the machine are really capable of doing so. You know, you don't need to be micromanaging everybody. And I think that he's really good at that, and he's really also very good at if he does feel something is rubbing him in a way that he doesn't like or just isn't interesting enough, he can express that in a way to where we understand what it is that we, instead of just going, I don't like this part, he can really specifically say, I don't like how that part does this particular thing, how it builds that tone. I think the sound could be more interesting. I don't like the beat. You know, the melody is not strong enough. So he can really pinpoint exactly what it is. So we're not just perhaps rewriting a whole new part. We can actually just fix the one thing, and that could be as simple as changing the tone of the hi-hat to a better melody. So, and yeah, you know, we do trust Rick with, you know, he has respect in us, and he believes that we can deliver what we intend to deliver, and we trust that he's going to steer us, keep us focused on making songs that don't sound like anything we've done before and are pushing us into these uncharted territories, so to speak, sonically. So it's a good partnership.
There's definitely like almost like a digital chatter going on in the background. Or I talked about this with somebody else recently about the music. Like it feels like even at any point on the record, like you feel like at any point on the record it could turn on you and it could do something completely different. Like if whether you're enjoying it or you're feeling like an anxiety, or you're feeling whatever you're feeling at any point, the album could just completely pull that out from under you and go somewhere else. And it does that all, and that was it was one of the hardest things to do on this record, is sequencing that out within the song and then over the course of the whole thing, like really making sure we liked how it played out and how it would surprise you here, and then at other times just give you what you've been waiting for in another spot. And that was like, you know, that's partially, you can attribute that to the ways we wrote the songs, and but also just like there's a you know, maybe just because the guys are older, like we don't want to hear the same structure, the same thing over and over, and I think that when we are making music, we want to be challenged and we want to have fun and we want to do stuff that isn't expected. So if a song at any point started to feel like too much of, you know, one thing, then we'd say, okay, well, let's do the opposite then. Let's just go at it completely backwards. Like if it sounds too much like green, then we're going to put red on it. Or we're going to, if it sounds too much like this band, then what is that band completely incapable of doing? And we'll try and do that on it. And it just, so it just like, hopefully it just takes you on this ride that like you kind of don't know where it's going to go, and it surprises you and like delivers the thing that you want when you want it at the right time, like, but makes you wait a little bit too.